good morning, Sister Mary White.
Good morning, Jody Screes.
You've been living on campus in Regina for, what, about 11 years?
11 years, yes.
Mm-hmm. And what drew you to live in Adrian, Michigan, among the cornfields?
Why did I come here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was finished with my job in Seattle, and I came, and a lot of people said to me, if you came here, you could do this and do that, and mostly related to gardening and outdoor stuff. So I thought, okay, there's my sign. So I will move to Michigan with all my...
If not then, when would you do it?
Yeah.
Come while it's on your mind. So you were part of the merge between the Edmund Sisters
Correct.
and the Adrian Dominican Sisters. That process took how many years?
Well, we started talking about it about 10 years before we really seriously talked about it. I mean, it was mentioned in some of our privacies said we should do this, but we weren't ready. And finally, in around 2001, I think, we had a facilitator for one of our assemblies, and she said, if you don't do it now, you won't be able to do it.
Wow.
You won't have the psychological or physical strength to do it. So,
well, that lit a fire, didn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So we did it. We talked about it again for several years because...
Well, did you immediately start conversation with the Adrian Dominicans?
We started with 17 Dominican communities.
Oh.
We sent out letters to them saying we wanted to merge
Dialogue.
or dialogue. And finally we got 3 that looked possible to us. And it turned out that we chose Adrian partly because of the history.
Oh.
We were Newburgh Dominicans, and it was in, I think, 1929 or something like that, around that time that the Newburgh leadership at one of their council meetings told us we could be independent, both Adrian and at that time we were probably Everett Dominicans. And
oh my.
so
And
actually
the rest is history.
because our history was all together until around 1929, why not join?
Yes.
Put it back together? And I have found since I've been here that so many of our practices are identical.
Isn't that beautiful?
So it wasn't a big change.
Is there anything that the sisters from Edmonds used to do that we don't do here in Adrian?
Well, the only thing I know of is our prioress back in around 1920, Mother Guillermo, decided to have strawberry shortcake on St. Catherine's Day. Now, how she did that, I don't know, because it was before the days of freezing and everything. But
And not the strawberry time of the year either, in April.
But we did somehow get strawberries.
Well, I would suggest that you make that known. Well, we are making it known right now.
Yeah,
that perked up
we've sort of said that to people around, probably nobody in authority, but
well,
we'll
work on that, Mary.
We need
Yes.
strawberry shortcake on St. Catherine's.
So you were born in Seattle?
No,
No.
I was born in Minnesota.
Oh my
I'm a
heavens.
Minnesotan.
What?
I was born in Montevideo, Minnesota.
And there were no Everett Edmond nuns there, right?
No. Actually, I was only there for 6 months, and then we moved to Kansas because my dad's family was in Kansas by that time.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother really didn't have a close family. Her dad had died a long time before, and her mother was still living, but not too well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess because the possibility for work was better in Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
we moved to Kansas.
And then somehow found your way in,
Yeah,
in a covered wagon.
My dad had applied for a job in Bremerton, Washington in 1929. And they called him in 1940 and told him if he came right away, he could have a job. So it was basically up to Mom to get us packed up and to drive to Kansas to Washington because my dad was already there.
Oh my heaven! And what was his occupation?
He was a machinist.
For
He used to grind. Well, in the Navy Yard, one of his jobs would be to grind down the propeller shafts so that they fit into the casing and the ship could move.
Yes, that was a very exact
Yeah.
profession.
He was very precise in most things he did, and a very clever man. He could look at something and then go home and make it.
He was probably a natural inventor.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's one of the things I think I inherited from him to a degree.
The quizzical mind, you mean?
The ability to figure out things and maybe do something to make them.
You must have majored in math.
I did. I majored, actually, I have a degree in chemistry, but it included math. So in most of my teaching career was in math and science. I taught in high school for quite a few years, and then I taught in schools that had what we would call today junior high, but they were Catholic schools, and they had different classes. I can't think of the word right now, but I taught math in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade,
I see.
and science in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Was teaching your favorite thing in this whole wide world?
No.
I bet it was gardening.
Yeah, I taught for about 20 years because it was what we were told to do. And then I started working in parish work, and I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then I met up with a group of people in Canada who were doing a workshop that I really liked. And so I went to Canada to take all their courses, and then ended up doing their books for them. I became their accountant.
Oh my!
And I learned how to do
those
fancy kind of books.
Oh my! So, how long were you in Canada?
I was there 8 years.
What were some of the fringe benefits of being in? Was it Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I loved Winnipeg. It's a beautiful city. I loved the winters, even though they were 40 below, because I love cross-country skiing.
Oh.
So I used to go down on the river and ski for...
On the river?
Yeah. The rivers froze.
Oh, well, of course.
In October and thawed in April, so we had a good long time.
Well, you didn't need much effort on the river.
No, actually it was perfectly flat and protected from the wind.
Oh, that would be the reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were probably...
And then I was happily enjoying my life there, and I really enjoy doing accounting. And I went home one day, and Sister Barbara Madison said, "I'd like to see you." And she said to me, when I came into the office, "I want you to come home and be coordinator at St. Alphonsus Convent, which was the home for our oldest and most fragile sisters.
Oh, my.
I was there about 5 years, and we had about 5 people who went to heaven.
Oh, well, that was a gift.
Peacefully.
Yes.
Most of them were really peaceful deaths. They died in their sleep or at night, so it was...
Did you ever live at Rosary Heights?
Yeah.
In Edmonds?
After I retired from being coordinator, I decided to go to Rosary Heights to help Sister Kathleen Logan, who was doing was in charge of the booking there of groups that came to use the.
That was your former mother house.
It
Still
was
was,
also
huh?
the mother house, but we had a few, and then when Kathleen retired, I sort of took over and had a group that we really had fun inventing things to do with women, usually it was younger women, and we would create workshops for all kinds of things.
Did you have a garden there?
I had a garden. One of them went right over the cliff when we had the landslide.
I know you were. I always thought of it being on the cliffs of Dover, but the cliffs of
Puget Sound. Yeah.
And where did the garden go?
And the garden was about 300 feet down.
And was it still growing?
Yeah. Actually, what happened was the broccoli especially was the thing I could keep track of. And it produced crop, and then it bloomed beautifully, and I could see these beautiful yellow blossoms down below, untouchable.
Oh, is Rosary Heights where you lived with Sister Michelle Comp?
I did.
Yes.
Michelle was still there. She was prioress at the time and was willing to help us do the merger.
Oh, may she rest in peace.
Yeah.
And I understand you were present for her memorial service.
Yes.
Or her funeral.
She was quite ill for several years and just couldn't live, so even though she was too young.
Yes. Much.
I mean, she was only 76, and that's young.
Yes. Is that your age now?
No. I'm 10 years older than that.
Oh, really? Well, you're young 10 years older.
Yeah.
Well,
but I enjoy life.
I do want to take this moment to thank you in the name of Holy Mother Earth and the Adrian Dominican Sisters for bringing to us and teaching us about composting. So tell me, how did you learn that, and how did you begin here teaching us?
I think probably about 5 or 6 years before I came to Adrian. I'd been reading about it, and I convinced the man who worked for us to build me a compost bin, which was about, maybe 10 feet long and 4 feet wide.
Wow.
And it was in the back of the garage, so I had really a good kind of composting going there. When I came here, I realized there was nobody doing composting, so I said to somebody in charge, I don't know who, or maybe I didn't, that we could do composting. You know, if we just had bins at Regina, we could do it, and people were willing to do it. So each floor in Regina had a bin to collect it, and it works pretty well. And the co-workers in the kitchen said, why can't we do it?
My.
So it's composting was all over the place.
Both kitchens, Madden and Maria?
Yes.
Oh my, see what you started. And the recent video showing the different areas on campus and homes that are doing composting. You must be very proud of that.
Well,
Please.
I'm from Seattle, and Seattle has composting.
Part of their life, you mean?
Yeah. Actually, the garbage people pick up the compost in Seattle, and all kinds of recycled business and very little garbage.
We were recycling when you came to campus, weren't we?
Yes, I
Yes.
think so.
Probably in its primitive
Yeah, I
state.
think the paper and cardboard was recycled.
Mm-hmm.
Now they use the cardboard in their permaculture, so it gets composted as well.
I bet you're delighted about that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a garden out in the area?
I do, but I
Permaculture.
didn't do it this year because I was not quite able.
Mm-hmm.
So
The limbs weren't working like you wanted them
that's
to.
correct. I had a knee replacement in
Oh.
August, and I really was hoping that would be in November or something, but it didn't work.
Mm-hmm. What about family? Are your mother and
My mother died in 19
how
about 78
Okay.
or 79, and my father died in 1992.
Mm-hmm. How old was
the
he?
day after his 92nd birthday.
Oh.
My mother was younger, I think. She was in like maybe 75 or so.
And when your father retired from the shipyard there,
Mm-hmm.
He had to keep busy because
Oh,
he had
of course.
that mine that was going
My
1,000
father-
miles.
And somehow or other he got connected with blueberries.
And what do you mean connected with blueberries?
He discovered that he liked growing things like blueberries. He never did the garden when we were growing up. My mother did the garden. But in his retirement, he started with a few blueberries, and then with blueberries you have to prune them every year. So he didn't want to throw away the prunings, so he put them in his hotbed and ended up with probably 1,000 blueberry plants.
Oh my.
Actually, when he decided to retire his whole blueberry patch, he sold his blueberry plants to the customers that he'd been selling blueberries to. And he got his backhoe out and dug them out, drove them over to the person who was buying it and planted them for him.
Oh my. What a man.
So he,
Yeah.
whether they're still in existence, I don't know. I've been back to Bremerton a couple of times, and I met the couple that lives in our house, but they
What
like our house. Dad and my mother and my older brother built the house.
Wow.
We lived in a tent while they were doing it.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
One of my favorite stories is we had a skunk visit us one night, and my mother was awake, and I woke up and she says, "Now be very quiet." And over in the bread box, the skunk and her family was having a midnight snack.
A banquet.
So they ate the whole loaf of bread and then they went away.
Oh my golly. Oh, for a camera at that time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and my mother said to Dad when he got home, he worked nights, and when he got home she said, "We're going to build a wall around this tent." So he had to put a flooring in and about a 4-foot wall, I think, so that
To keep the skunks out.
skunks out, yeah. Because once she knew that there was food there, she would be back.
Yes. Did your father ever invent anything with that curious mind
Well,
of his?
he went to blueberry meetings, and he saw this system for cleaning blueberries. And so he came home and said, "I can do that." So he built a blueberry
Cleaner.
cleaner that the blueberries would roll over a screen and the fan would blow the leaves and
Oh my, amazing. So you spoke about an older brother.
mhm.
Any sisters?
I have a sister who's younger than I.
Mhm.
No,
Is she-
older than I.
Is she on this living earth?
Yes.
Yeah.
My older brother died about 2004. But I still have a older sister and a younger brother living.
Wonderful. And you had a brother who was in religious life also,
Yeah.
correct?
He was
A
my older
priest.
brother was a priest.
Mhm. Your parents felt blessed having a sister and a brother?
Well, my mother was one of these people that said, wasn't my doing. It was just, so she never, I think she was proud of us, but she never told us that.
Mm. Yeah.
It was just, she wasn't.
You felt it.
She wasn't in charge.
Yeah, right.
I mean-
Our loving God was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she never took credit for it.
So tell me, did you have the sisters in grade school and high school?
When we moved to Bremerton, which is just a ferry ride away from
Mhm.
Seattle, Washington, our sisters were teaching in that school. And so I had our sisters from 4th grade through 8th. And then my parents didn't want us to ever go to public school, so all 4 of us took the ferry over to Seattle and went to school in Seattle.
Oh my heavens! Every day,
Every
the
day,
ferry,
yeah.
and
The
then
ferry
you
and the bus.
and the bus, and you came home on the bus and the ferry.
Yes. I think I spent more time riding the bus and ferry than I did in the classroom.
Did you do all 4 years?
I did 2.5 years about, and then the ferry went on strike. And so there was a boarding school. We had a boarding school there.
Mhm.
And we went, I started boarding, and I enjoyed not riding the ferry and the bus so much that I talked my parents into letting me board for the last year and
When
2
did you
years.
When did you realize that you were drawn to religious life?
I think when I was about 4 years old.
Oh.
I have always known, from whenever reason came to me, I have always known that I was going to be a sister.
But you had known what sisters were when you were 4 years old.
Well,
you
yeah,
had
I
seen
went
them.
to kindergarten,
Oh. all
and I
right.
was the only one in the family that went to kindergarten, and there were sisters there, and I just said, that's what I'm going to do.
Did your congregation have sponsors that would help someone who was going to enter?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just whatever sister we chose.
Mm-hmm. And who was your sponsor?
Mine was Sister Joan Lecture.
Mm-hmm.
She was boarding school mistress part of the time,
And the name you chose for religious life?
I was Stephen. Because I liked the name, I don't know. I have no idea why. I
Wasn't your
chose Stephen.
father's name?
No, it wasn't my father's name, my brother's name,
Uh-huh.
anybody in the family's name, but I just loved St. Stephen. So-
Quite a story of the smarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought, I think I'm going to do that. They wanted me to take David for my brother, but I said, no, I don't. I don't think we want to have a Sister David and a Father David in the community, so,
That would be novel.
yeah.
Yes. Before we end, I would love to know your reaction to Vatican II.
Oh, I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm not a really good student, but just the whole concept of more free, accepting the fact that the lay people really know stuff
Sometimes
You know,
more
maybe,
than we do.
maybe more than the pastor.
Yeah.
And that fact that a lot of lay people were studying
Theology and
theology, and
pastoral
the
ministry.
sisters particularly were
Mm.
sometimes more informed than the priest in the parish.
Yeah.
Because I think we have continued to study, and I'm not sure how many priests have.
Well, it's our charism,
Yeah,
that's for
well,
sure.
because we're Dominicans.
Yes. Well,
And-
thank you, Mary, for your time today, and thank you again for bringing your gifts and sharing them so generously.
Well, I've had fun doing it.
I know. That's very obvious.
And I think I just know that this is where I need to be. It's like when I was 4 or 5 years old, I knew I was going to be a sister. And when we started doing the studying for what community would join, I knew it would be Edmonds. So,
And we share that charism forever and ever.
mhm.
Praise the Lord. And St. Dominic.
Yes.
Yes, amen.
Yes.
Thank you.